The Ohio arena pulsed with anticipation as thousands cheered, red hats waving, for former President Donald J. Trump. On stage, Trump declared, "We're bringing our jobs back." The crowd erupted. He shifted to a combative tone. "For too long, foreign countries have taken advantage of us, dumping cheap products, killing our factories, stealing our jobs." Then, the bombshell. Starting next month, we're placing a massive 30% tariff on all copper from Canada. The crowd roared, energized by the promise to protect American industry. Trump painted the tariff as a wall of economic policy, designed to make Canadian copper more expensive and revive American mines. "We're going to make American copper king again," he bellowed. For many in the arena, these words were a lifeline after years of industrial decline. But as cheers echoed, financial news alerts pinged. Economists and analysts were already warning of disruption and retaliation. The US and Canadian economies are deeply intertwined, especially in manufacturing and construction. While the crowd celebrated, experts worried about a looming trade war that could harm far more than it helped. The applause in Ohio was loud, but the anxious silence in boardrooms across North America was just as profound. The stage was set for a confrontation with consequences far beyond copper. A tariff is a tax on imported goods, simple in theory, but powerful in effect. With Trump's new policy, Canadian copper arriving at the US border would cost importers 30% more. The goal: make American copper more attractive, boosting domestic mines and jobs. This is protectionism, shielding US industries from foreign competition. Supporters argue it preserves jobs and national security, but the American economy is a complex web. Companies that use copper, builders, manufacturers, automakers, now faced higher costs. For them, the tariff was a burden, not a shield. The policy aimed to help miners, but risked hurting manufacturers and consumers. Critics warned that protecting one industry could destabilize many others. The fundamental flaw: the American economy isn't a zero-sum game. Every action has ripple effects, and the copper tariff was about to test just how far those ripples would reach. The battle lines were drawn between raw material producers and the industries that depend on them. Canada didn't hesitate. Within 48 hours, Prime Minister Trudeau's government announced retaliatory tariffs. Their targets were strategic: bourbon, cheese, oranges, lawnmowers, products from politically sensitive US states. The message: hurt American exporters where it would sting Trump's base. Trudeau, resolute on national TV, declared, "Canada will not be bullied. These actions harm workers on both sides." The response was designed to rally Canadian support and pressure US politicians. The trade dispute escalated rapidly, businesses caught in the crossfire. A US copper mine might benefit, but a dairy farmer or bourbon distiller now faced lost markets. Canadian companies suffered too, as tariffs raised prices on American goods. The tit-for-tat moves turned economic theory into messy reality. Suddenly, the dispute wasn't just about copper. It was about jobs, livelihoods, and political leverage. The lines of economic battle were drawn, and real people were about to feel the impact. The trade skirmish had become a full-blown conflict. The effects were immediate and painful. In Michigan, a construction company saw copper wire prices jump 25%, halting projects and slashing profits. In Wisconsin, a cheese producer lost Canadian orders overnight, forcing layoffs. Large corporations weren't spared. An automaker with plants in Ohio and Ontario faced soaring costs and logistical chaos. The copper tariff raised prices for parts. Canadian tariffs hit finished cars. Uncertainty spread. Expansion plans paused, hiring froze, supply chains scrambled. The intended boost for miners was drowned out by chaos for manufacturers and exporters. Businesses on both sides of the border scrambled for alternatives, but the damage was done. The trade war's ripple effects chilled the broader economy, undermining confidence and growth. The real impact was felt on the ground. In Arizona, miner David hoped for job security, but worried for his brother-in-law at an air conditioning plant facing layoffs from higher copper costs. "Feels like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul," he said. In Kentucky, Maria's family distillery faced disaster as Canadian tariffs priced their bourbon out of its biggest export market. "We're looking at laying off half our staff." "How is this helping America?" she asked. In Quebec, a union leader at a copper smelter lamented, "We're not the enemy. Our workers have families too." Canadian consumers, facing higher prices for U.S. goods, felt betrayed by a neighbor. "Politicians are playing a game, and ordinary people pay the price," said a shopper in Windsor. Across industries and borders, the sentiment was the same. The trade war was hurting workers, families, and communities. Hopes for quick resolution faded as frustration grew. The voices of those affected were clear. This conflict was no victory for the people it claimed to protect. The cost of political posturing was being paid in lost jobs and broken trust. The call for common sense grew louder. As backlash mounted, Trump doubled down. At a tense White House press conference, he dismissed negative reports as fake news and framed the pain as a necessary sacrifice. "They hit us, so we hit them back," he declared, vowing not to back down. He accused Canada of disloyalty, personalizing the dispute as a battle of wills. On social media, he threatened even broader tariffs, this time on Canadian cars. The auto industry panicked. The threat of escalation loomed. What began as a political win was now a two-front battle, with Canada and with U.S. industries suffering from the fallout. Trump's rhetoric projected strength, but revealed frustration as the trade war spiraled. The tariff had backfired, and instead of retreating, the administration chose to escalate. The conflict was now bigger, messier, and more dangerous than anyone had planned. The trade war's impact trickled down to everyday life. In the U.S., prices for goods with copper, air conditioners, plumbing, electronics crept upward. Families faced tough choices as costs rose, budgets stretched thin. In Canada, American products like bourbon and cheese jumped in price overnight. Shoppers shifted to alternatives, sometimes out of national pride, often out of necessity. The hidden costs of tariffs, higher bills, fewer choices, hit millions. The promise of protecting jobs felt distant as wallets took the hit. Trade wars have no real winners. Everyone pays. The grand gestures in Washington and Ottawa translated into daily frustrations for ordinary people. The economic pain was real, and it was everywhere. With both sides entrenched, U.S.-Canada relations chilled. Diplomacy stalled, trust eroded, and cooperation on other issues suffered. The dispute was no longer just about copper, it was about the future of the partnership. Three paths emerged: escalation, stalemate, or negotiation. Escalation, tariffs on cars, could trigger recession and mass job losses. Stalemate would mean a new, hostile normal, higher costs, less growth, hardened borders. The best hope was negotiation, a face-saving compromise, phasing out tariffs on both sides. This would require political courage and a focus on mutual benefit. Most businesses and citizens favored this path, but political will was uncertain. The next chapter depended on leaders' willingness to put people before politics. Beyond politics, ordinary Americans and Canadians wanted stability and normalcy. They saw each other as neighbors, not adversaries, bound by deep economic and personal ties. From truck drivers to small business owners, the message was clear. Let us get back to work. A healthy Canadian economy benefits the U.S., and vice versa. People wanted fair, open trade, not barriers and uncertainty. Workers and farmers on both sides understood their fates were linked. The plea was simple: set aside political games, restore partnership, and focus on shared prosperity. The hope remained for a quiet border, steady jobs, and a friendship strong enough to weather any storm.